The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The black and blue division is back. The number one spot in the NFC North up for grabs.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Lauren, I was saying to my audience earlier this week, I think the biggest Packers game in over a decade, Packers-Bears game. And I don't know if I can't think of a game that had more stakes for both teams. There's been bigger Bears games, I think, against the Packers, like that Mitch Trubisky season. They win. That was a big one for Chicago, but it was a bad Green Bay season. This feels like, to me, the biggest Packers-Bears game that we've had since the Randall Cobb catch in 2013.
And it'll be the biggest one we've had until 2 weeks from now, when we have the biggest Bears-Packers game. Like it's collectively, these two games are super critically important, not only for just like NFC North, who's going to be first place, but then also the playoff seeding that then plays off of that. Like, there is so much at stake. The other three games left on the schedule matter much, much less for both of these teams.
It feels like the cluster of games we had in 2010, where the Packers play the Bears the last week of the season. The Bears have nothing to play for, and Lovie Smith decides to play his guys, and they lose. They lose the game at Lambeau. Green Bay gets in. They get to the playoffs. We remember what happened in the NFC Championship game in Chicago. For anyone that doesn't remember, BJ Raji sealed the game on a pick six. It was actually Sam Seals who really, I had forgotten that game still, even after the BJ Raji interception, still came down to an interception on the last drive against Caleb Haney. And the Packers won the Super Bowl that year. That comparison, maybe we can make it in a couple weeks. Maybe we can make it in 6 weeks when one of these teams is making a deep playoff run. So we'll hold off on that for now. Lauren, I want to ask you flat out, this team is the number one seed in the NFC. How good are they really, though?
So I don't think they're like, quote unquote, the best team in the NFC, but I also think we look at the NFC right now and go, who is actually really good? Who is infallible? And I think the Bears are right there in that conversation with everyone else. Like, I still find myself feeling like, even though the Rams just lost to the Panthers, they're probably the best team in the NFC. But beating the Eagles the way that the Bears did, and seeing the Rams lose to the Panthers, see the Packers lose to the Panthers and Browns, see, like, all these teams have lost to bad teams, Bears included in that. And so they're all fallible, and no one is this like juggernaut at the front of the NFC. So I think the Bears can beat any of these other NFC teams on any given Sunday, but also, like, no one's going to be surprised if any of these teams lose to each other.
Well, and here's what I've been saying on radio all week and on my show, and despite what Bears fans might tell you on social media as well, the Bears do two things at an elite level. And there aren't that many teams that do one thing at an elite level, much less two. This is the best run team in the NFL. And they are the best turnover team in the NFL. Not just that they create a bunch, they do over 2 a game, which is crazy and will probably like come down at some point. But like, how many games are there to go, right? So like, at some point, you've just banked. This was Luke Braun's thing in 2022 with the Vikings. Like, at a certain point, you've just banked enough wins that you get into the playoffs and it doesn't matter. But when you can do two things at a super high level, and one thing is definitely something that translates week to week, playoffs, the run game travels. And the way the Bears are running the ball, that's going to travel. They are kicking people's asses up front. And I'm just, it was startling watching the tape of the Eagles game, where it's just like, you and I could have picked up some yards in that game playing running back.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, the Bears still don't have a really solid left tackle right now either, right? It's not like, oh, this is left to right, the 5 best offensive linemen in football. I mean, they're one of the better groups for sure. They're playing at a high level, but like, they have a rookie second round pick playing a left tackle who didn't get in the starting lineup until, halfway through the season due to injury. It wasn't even like they were ready to try and force him out there just yet. And so they're living and dying.
Probably don't have an all-pro in that group, do they?
Say that again?
They probably don't have an all-pro on the offensive line.
Joe Thuney will probably be an all-pro again. I mean, he just by reputation, those guys kind of get it every year, and they're playing pretty well. And Darnell Wright has been sniffing in the Pro Bowl conversation we'll see. I mean, again, it's sort of like reputationally winning team with an offensive line playing well tends to get a boost there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I saw Sean Ryan was like top 5 at center. He's played 2 games at center.
Yeah, there's always some flukiness to that, but like they're just communicating so well and on the same page. It was something that they were slow to get going early this season, and just like same with the running backs, trying to just kind of feel and read. Okay, how quickly does Jonah Jackson get to the second level? How quickly can Drew Dahlman, reach block that center, and just trying to find that perfect timing. And like now it's all clicking, and I think Bears fans are just holding their breath that this group can keep staying healthy, because a few of those guys have an injury history that hasn't really been a problem this season. So fingers crossed the Bears are getting healthy at the right time.
Yeah, Jonah Jackson, I mean, he was unbelievable against the Eagles, against a really good interior. Like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, that's one of the best 1-2 interiors in the NFL. And it was like they didn't even play for most of the game. I mean, it was really a sight to behold. Now, the other side, like I thought, just between friends here, I thought Jalen Hurts was an atrocity. I thought the offensive line, the offensive design, like the Eagles, I don't know what's going on in that offense. That is like, if you watch the offensive design and execution of the Eagles next to the Bears and the Packers, they play a different sport. I mean, really, they do. Like, imagine how good that Eagles team would be with Ben Johnson or Matt LaFleur calling plays.
Yeah.
They wouldn't lose.
It's crazy to see like that kind of talent squandered over there. And I think on the opposite, you see
it's a shame. What a shame.
In Green Bay and Chicago, like maximizing talent. And that's not something we've seen in Chicago for a long time, where you feel like, wow, they're really getting the most out of this guy. And he really elevated the level of play of someone who you thought you weren't sure how great he was going to be, but wow, actually they're using him really well. And it's been kind of one of the big turnarounds for the Bears. It's just like even some of the same players that have been here for a couple of years are playing better. And I think on both sides of the ball, they're seeing like real coaching and development. It's a foreign concept for us.
I asked this question only like 35% as a troll. In your life, how many times did you go into a Bears-Packers game thinking the Bears had the coaching advantage?
Ooh, the coaching advantage. That there were definitely some times even in the Lovie Smith era, like offensive coordinator wasn't necessarily feeling like an advantage, but
what I mean.
There were some Packers defensive coordinator days that I recall not being particularly impressive. I would say one hand. We can count on one hand. I don't know if I can call all the specific.
I think the one I think of is 2018, because Matt Nagy was looking like, he won Coach of the Year that year, right? Who was the DC on that team?
Vic Fangio.
Okay, so then, okay, like Vic Fangio rocks. And so like that, I think you could make the case that year because McCarthy had overstayed his welcome in Green Bay, and that team had sort of tuned him out. I don't know how many other times you really could have said it, just because either the head coach was a dolt or one of the coordinators was, not an NFL coach, or like, you know what I mean? So this is a very different feeling right now for Ben Johnson. I thought it was really honest from Jalen Johnson when he said, like, this is probably the most confident we've been for one of these games, which is a tacit admission that he's played a lot of football against Green Bay where they did not have this level of confidence. And that makes sense, right? Like, when you have success, it breeds confidence in your teammates and in the coaches that, hey, what we're doing here works. And that's a stark turnaround from anything we've seen in Chicago for a long time. And I really genuinely do not mean that as a troll at all. Like that's a real thing.
Well, and I think the big difference is like Matt Eberflus and Matt Nagy never ripped their shirts off after a win to kind of instill that confidence and get free hot dogs from the city of Chicago. Like, I mean, as much as like I've seen Packers fans kind of roll their eyes at it or whatever, like there is a real difference in the energy here that we haven't seen. I mean, Matt Nagy had them doing like a club dub in the locker room is what they would call it after wins, but like it was more just like a little bit of like a party. And this is more like guys are really like locked in, fired up, ready to go play another football game as soon as one gets done.
I think if you are the kind of person who thinks that Ben Johnson comes off generally as disingenuous, I understand how you could also view that as a put on and those kinds of things. But also, like, I don't know, a lot of the stuff that is coaching is artifice, right? Like it's all just an act. Like watch Dabo Swinney one time at the podium. Like, come on, like that's, you kind of have to have some of that. This is all fake. This is all entertainment. It's a charade in a lot of ways. It's silly, and it's okay to be a little silly. Like it's fine. Like Bill Belichick wore a cutoff hoodie on the sideline, for crying out loud. Like, let's not be too serious about this.
Well, and that's the contrast with Ben Johnson. I think why it works so well in Chicago is like when you watch him on the sidelines, he does not emote. He does not react. Interception, he doesn't get mad. Touchdown, he doesn't smile. He doesn't celebrate. He's not high-fiving guys. He is just like laser focused, locked in. And so then I think like after the game, he kind of just lets that out and kind of releases that in a way that I think the players can kind of feel that like it's that like party it's like business in the front, party in the back kind of.
So Ben Johnson is the mullet of coaches, is what you're saying.
Yeah, whereas like, well, Dan Campbell has the mullet like lifestyle, but Ben Johnson has the mullet like functionality.
Yeah, listen, I think spiritually Dan Campbell has a mullet. Like I know that he doesn't, but like I can just picture it, and it would have to be one of those like Jerry Curl mullets where it's like super curly, one of those like peak 80s mullets. Like spiritually, he has one of those. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, FanDuel.com is the place to go place your live NFL bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Two teams going in opposite directions, meeting up for a huge Thursday night showdown in Detroit.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Looks like the Cowboys are back, right? There's life again at Jerry World.
I don't know if they're back, but they're playing good football. And for Cowboy fans, that's honestly all we wanted to see after how bad the season started, just to have them start to play better and to have some meaningful games, Matt. I mean, listen, you and I have both been through this where you're covering a team that's playing games into, November and December that just don't matter for anything. And for a Cowboys team that started off the season was 1-3 and 1 point, to have a game like this on Thursday Night Football, it's not quite a playoff game, but it's pretty darn close. It's a lot of fun.
What's been the biggest difference? We'll get to the Lions in a second, but what's going on that's made this work? Obviously, the additions to the D-line. I love what the interior's done, and it seems like some of your guys that you drafted too, including Azaraku, are starting to show up.
Yeah, it's surprising that good players make your defense better, right? Like it's not a huge surprise when you add someone like Quinnen Williams. Suddenly your run defense gets better. You're able to create more pressure on the quarterback, and they've really stumbled into something here with these 5-man defensive line looks where they get all three of their defensive tackles on the field. Kenny Clark, Osa Digizua, and then Quinnen Williams. You mentioned Donovan Ezaraku. He is Pro Football Focus's highest graded rookie so far this year. He only has 2 sacks, and if you look at the box scores, you won't be overly impressed, but really strong run defender. He's creating a bunch of pressure. So you've got this defensive line that's starting to win their individual matchups, and they're covering up some of the mistakes on the back end, but you're also getting guys back healthy on defense, including Savon Ravel, their 3rd-round pick from East Carolina, Kalen Carson, who missed the first half of the season. Trayvon Diggs might be playing in this game. It's not a dominating unit by any stretch, but it's a much improved unit compared to what we saw in the first 2 months of the season.
6-5-1 Cowboys, a 7-5 Lions. Big game and a home game here, Marcus, for this team. And I don't really know where to go and what to tell you about storylines here in Detroit. And for the Cowboy viewers and listeners here on Locked On Cowboys, you're not facing last year's Lions team, and you're not facing 2 years ago's Lions team, but they have the capability on Thursday night to show up, man up. They haven't lost 2 in a row in 3 years, and win a football game they must have. And they just aren't sharp. They're not crisp. They're making mistakes, whether it's penalties. There's been a lot of injuries, and I do think they're going to play that card at the end of the year unless they make a run. But they're just not playing Lions football. It just has not been the same look and the same team. Yet here they are with a chance at home to kind of right a wrong from last week on Thanksgiving. I know you saw it, and where the Packers really kind of beat them up a little bit. Yes, it was a close game, and yes, the Lions made a nice run to get it within 7, but they couldn't close, and they haven't been playing all that well at home. A bad home loss to Minnesota, losing to Green Bay, narrowly escaping against a 2-win Giant team at Ford Field. I'm hoping that this team comes out with a purpose and a fervor on Thursday, but I just don't know. I'm scratching my head like you are, Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, coaches will always say injuries aren't an excuse, but again, you and I have been covering the league for long enough that we know that it is, right? At some point you get to, where you just don't have starting caliber players on the field. It seems like Detroit is there on the offensive line right now with your interior, and it seems like they're that way in the secondary right now with Terrion Arnold. He's out for the year with a shoulder injury. Kirby Joseph is dealing with a knee injury. You've got some guys that have made some plays, including like a Meek Robertson, but they're not Terrion Arnold and they're not Kirby Joseph. And at some point, the lack of talent just starts to win out.
It's interesting. You brought up the secondary. I mean, they need Kirby back, and we'll see if he can go on Thursday and give it a try with a giant knee brace on. Terrion Arnold has been kind of a mystery for 2 years. First round pick, I thought would have a better year this year. Calvin Shepard, the D coordinator, said during camp, there's a guy that's going to have a breakout year this year. It's been him. It would be him. It really hasn't been. When he's been healthy, he's been better, but he hasn't been healthy. Now, you mentioned out for the year. Lions have been able to piece together the secondary with some backups. Rock Yassin and others have played pretty well. Their biggest issue has been getting to the quarterback. And in watching you guys on Thanksgiving Day and the week before, heck, everybody watches the Cowboys. They're always on wherever you are. It looks like Dak's comfortable. And the Chiefs, I know, tried like crazy to blitz him the other day. And man, they picked it up. And
it's been one of the best parts of their offense this year is their ability to beat the blitz. And it helps when you've got two receivers like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. And that's honestly probably what Detroit was hoping this year with Amon-Ra St. Brown and, Jameson Williams. But with Amon-Ra dealing with an ankle injury right now, we still don't know if he's going to go in this game. Even if he does, he's going to be severely compromised. It really helps to have these two receivers that can get open at will against man coverage or zone coverage. And one more thing from the Cowboys side of things, they've been saying that this is going to be their toughest game of the season. And it's easy to understand why. You're playing on the road. It's 7 days from Thursday to Thursday, but it's still kind of a short week because of, usually you get 10 days off after playing a Thursday game. That's not the case here. It's a Lions team that really their backs up are against the wall. I think we're going to see Dan Campbell be ultra aggressive. But if they can win this game and they can get to 7-5-1, that'll mean they've won 4 straight games. The rest of their schedule is pretty easy, including games against the Giants, the Commanders, Minnesota. They feel like they could really go on a run, but they've got to take care of business against a team that they remember running up the score on them last year. So it's going to be a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah, these two teams have played some wild games the last couple of years. Obviously, the controversial reporting game in Dallas a couple of years ago with Taylor Decker and Dan Skipper. Heck, Marcus, every single time they announce that number 70 is eligible at Ford Field, just on a regular play with Dan Skipper, the crowd goes nuts. They love it. It's become a bit here, and that was 2 years ago. And then obviously, like you said, last year, everybody loved the way the Lions just boat raced the Cowboys, but that was the day Aiden Hutchinson was lost for the year when he broke his fibula and tibia. So it was like, yes, you're celebrating a big Lions win against America's team, but that was the Aiden injury day. So it's weird timing now that they're playing now. Again, I'm not sure Lions fans know what to expect Thursday night. This could be the Lions team that comes out with Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams and Goff has time to throw, and boom, they're running it down the field and doing a great job offensively, and the defense is stepping up. Or it could be early on, something happens, a mistake, a special teams error, CD gets open, Ferguson in the seam, and man, all of a sudden it'll get a little quiet in that building. They need a fresh and fast start in this game. Or else, I mean, fans have said, like I said, they sat through a rough one against the Giants. The Vikings home loss was bad. And then this past Thursday against the Packers was not good. So they need to get the crowd into it, and they need to start the game pretty quickly.
Unfortunately, that's where the Cowboys have been really bad. Against the Eagles, was it 2 weeks ago? They gave up 21 points in the first quarter. It was a disaster. They had to fight their way all the way back to win that game. And even on Thursday against Kansas City, Cowboys had an interception on the first drive. The Chiefs scored in 2 plays after that, and they were down 7-0 in the first 2 minutes of that game. So I'm going to be curious to see, can the Cowboys get off to a faster start? Because they believe that the game script is going to be really important here. If you can take a lead, and then lean on your running game and make Jared Goff have to be a drop back passer with this pass rush. That's how they can steal this game. It's going to be fun to watch.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, FanDuel.com is the place to go place your live NFL bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
All that talk about the AFC South not being good, and the Jaguars and the Colts got a big one coming up this Sunday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The biggest story for me is Daniel Jones. I picked y'all to finish dead last this year because I was so unsure about the quarterbacks. Well, Daniel Jones, at least for 10 or 11 weeks, had me convinced that I was dead wrong. Jake, what's been going on lately, though?
Yeah, we've kind of come full circle on Daniel Jones and the Colts altogether. You know, at first, just like you said, you know, the vibes were a little low. People were lukewarm on him, even internally here within kind of the Colts sphere of things. He was a pleasant surprise, seemed to be the perfect marriage with Shane Steichen. Things were going great. I think they were like 7-1 to start out the year. And then they just hit some sort of major hiccups around Pittsburgh. Between Pittsburgh and Atlanta, he turned the ball over like 6 times, was sacked 12 times in those 2 games. And in the last 4 games overall from now through then, the Colts have dropped 3 of their last 4. It's very peculiar how to look at this entire thing, though, because in those 2 games, Jones was definitely a problem. Now, with the Atlanta game down the stretch, late in the 4th quarter and into overtime, he made some really clutch throws, redeeming his performance a little bit because the Colts won. But then you look at Kansas City, you look at Houston in these last 2 weeks, 0-2 in those 2 games, but he's played better, you know, despite that fractured leg, believe it or not. Kansas City, I thought he was really, really good through the first 3 quarters. And then in the 4th quarter, everything just fell apart. Teams know they can just blitz the heck out of the Colts right now. And his lack of mobility is a problem. He is not the problem, but his lack of mobility is. So that's been kind of a thing. He's been relegated to being just kind of a pocket passer right now because they can't use all the bootlegs and all the getting him out and moving that they normally would, and kind of cashing in on all the stuff that works so well early in the season. So he's doing well in what he's physically able to do right now. But defenses that are going to bring the heat, and the Colts have faced some really aggressive ones, they're getting home right now. And it's just limiting what the Colts can do. And so far, they haven't had a good answer for countering that.
Yeah.
We all can see it coming, and the Colts should be able to see it coming too. But defenses are just still getting home. And the offensive line in general has not really held up its end of the bargain the last few games. So that's just caused quite a few issues as well.
I think, you know, this is proof positive that maybe a fracture or a broken bone is actually worse than a high ankle sprain, because we've heard that for years, and dudes don't play with high ankle sprains, but they play with broken legs and broken fractured fibulas. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been hurt, but the roller coaster that you're talking about, it hasn't occurred the same way with him as it did with Daniel Jones, whereas Daniel Jones was lights out for 7, 8, 9, 10 games, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out. That used to happen with Trevor Lawrence every other quarter. Now, I say used to because I think it stopped like 2 games ago. So, you know, you got to take that with a grain of salt, but you can see the progression and the impact that Liam Cohen has had on him. And you got to forget about all of the draft expectations and just look at it for what it is. The last couple of weeks, the last few weeks, we can check on True Media, man, that we always use. Trevor Lawrence has been very, very good over the last 2.5 games. He had a bunch of turnovers early against Arizona, fixed it, got it together, and now with the addition of Jacoby Myers and with the welcoming back of Brenton Strange and Brian Thomas Jr., it seems like now you can start see the promise of what this is supposed to look like, what a Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence combo looks like. The thing that gets me, though, is nobody picked these two teams except David Harrison from Locked On Commanders. He picked the Jaguars to win the AFC South, but this is new blood, not only in our division, man, but at the top of this thing headed into the playoffs. And with Houston going to Kansas City, it's going to be fun watching to see how this shapes out. I can't ever recall a time where it seems like every single week there were games that were just so important to the schedule and important to teams' playoffs hopes. We never usually see it. Usually somebody has to wait on somebody else to do their work, but now these teams are playing each other.
Yeah, I think the Colts losing to Houston last week officially made it playoff mode for all three of these teams at the top because Jacksonville and the Colts are now tied, and then Houston's just a game behind them. And then the Colts in their final 6 games had 4 AFC South matchups. So an incredibly valuable final section of the roster or of the schedule. In Jacksonville, obviously the Colts have not won there since 2014. Don't know what kind of witchcraft is going on there, but it does not matter how bad the Jags are that year or how good the Colts are that year. Going on the road against the Jaguars is some enormous problem. Andrew Luck got shut out there in his final performance at Jacksonville. Yeah, so whatever it is, that's a tough matchup. The Colts close out the season week 18 in Houston. And then the 2 non-division games they have in Seattle. Seattle's been one of the best teams all year. And again, it's in Seattle. And then they have the 49ers on Monday Night Football. So
I know it sounds like I'm taking shots of tequila. Every time you say that, I go, that is daunting.
And
that's two games against the Jags, another against the Texans. Is that it?
Yep.
Oh my!
Not fun. They already swept the Titans. They got that done and out of the way already. But yeah, it's their final 5 games are brutal, and the playoffs start now. I really don't know that they can drop another one. They can maybe drop one and get a wild card still, but if they want to have hopes of this division, they can't lose any more division games.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The Jaguars aren't quite there, but they still have another game against the Titans. They have the 2 against the Colts. They do have a tough game at Mile High against Denver, but then they also play the Jets. But the thing about the Jets, man, you can't count anybody out these days. So
they're weird.